Hi, it's Stu H on the Facebook group and Harboil on the Home Brew forums. While I'm waiting for Paul's new expandable malt pipe to make it to the shelves, I was doing a few calculations and just trying to work out in my head how I would approach different size grain bills using the different combinations of pipes. So I decided to go all scientific with it and have a little bit of a workout what lengths based on a normal grain type. So I just use Marisota. This may work to a limited extent with things like some of the adjuncts, as long as they're around a similar size crush to the typical sort of Marisota lager malts. They're all around the same size grain. If you're suddenly into something like I know, flake corn or something like that, this may blow your numbers. So just bear that in mind. This is based on those sort of standard grain types. So what I did was, first of all, just measure the fittings to work out how long all the fittings were, including taking into account obviously that the bulge lifts up at the bottom. And then what I did was I emptied 3 kilograms of grain into the malt pipe. And then right on the side of the malt pipe, I measured that up. Now I appreciate that goes down into the bulge, but I did account for that by measuring slightly lower below the line where the lower grate goes through the fitting here. So 8 centimeters in the malt pipe equaled 3 kilograms in weight. So thus 1 kilogram equals 0.375 grams of grain. And from there, I just basically did some kind of basic calculations to work out if I had how much grain I could use with, say, the short pipe up to the short pipe, how much grain I could use up to the long pipe, and then the two combined. So the short pipe I measured at 17 centimeters. And what I worked out is you can just sort of loosen off the fittings and just extend them. I think up to about 1 centimetre was as much as I was comfortable with, but by all means go your own way. But obviously 1 centimetre equals 0.375 grams of grain. So therefore, if you expand it by 1 centimetre, you can roughly add that much additional grain. What I haven't experimented with is expansion of the grain, how much it may swell up by. So I expect there will be some expansion. So bear that in mind too. I will probably update this video at a later date with a bit more information about what kind of expansion I saw, but I think broadly that's why I would probably go for the lower number, unless you're really confident that you know what the expansion is going to be. Then at the very least, if anything starts to expand, you've got a little bit you could wind out on the fittings to deal with the expanded grain. So so I measured the small one at 17, the long piece at 21.5, and the short and long together at 38.5. So that basically gives me, for the short one, that's 17 centimetres times 0.375 of grain. That gives me 6.375 kilograms of grain. So by my calculations, that would be the maximum that I would want to use on the small pipe. So anything, I guess, from 0 to that makes sense to use the small pipe. With the large pipe, I worked it out to be 21.5 times 0.375 again, and that gives me 8.1 kilograms of grain. So clearly you could go from, I don't know, 6.375 to 8.1, so that would kind of be your range between those two. And then on the final one, 38.5 centimetres times 0.375 grams of grain, and that gives me 14.4 kilograms of grain in the malt pipe. So those are my basic calculations for kind of making a decision ahead of time about how much grain I think I can get in the malt pipe. I've yet to test this hypothesis, so I like putting these things out there and maybe being wrong about them. I think the scientific inquiry is always interesting to me. So I'll test this out a bit more, but hopefully that's helpful to you. If you know the multiple, or I should say this is for the BrewDevil 50 litre. So it's probably going to be different on the 30 litre, or if you've maybe got a different system, it may be different. But the principle stands the same. Hopefully you can make these kind of calculations ahead of time, and then you know when you're building up your fittings, you're not going to end up in a situation where you're emptying all the grain back out of the malt pipe to change all the fittings around again. You can make the right decision ahead of time. So hopefully that's useful. If you want to give this a crack, give me some feedback. I really appreciate that. I will also do a follow-up video, or I might do I've got a couple of follow-up things from different bits that I've done. So I might just do a bit of a summary video in the next couple of weeks about a lot of the outstanding points I've raised, or things that I was going to test. So again, hopefully this is helpful, and chat soon. Great, thanks. Hi there. So rather than make you wait to the next video, I was actually doing a brew tomorrow morning, so I just thought I'd get into it and find out actually how the calculations worked out. I've been doing some fun stuff today, like just programming the boiler, doing some test runs on it, making sure the program works like I think it works, which it does, which is good. So I've got my HLT set up there, ready for sparging. Got the other pump set just up there, ready for sparging. But I put 8.5 kilograms of grain into the malt pipe. Now it does have the fitting, the collar on top, obviously. So I said 8. I think I said 8.1 would have been the sort of maximum. So it actually isn't that far off. It's probably a little bit ahead of where I thought it would be. But not too much of an issue. Definitely recommend just throwing a few random fittings like this. This is another collared fitting, and it's just a male-to-male stud. What that allows you to do is, if you get in this situation where you're just above 1, you can then obviously just drop the top plate on, without making too much of a mess. Straighten the pipe up and then screw that fitting in. It should screw down on top of the grain bill. Now it's not perfectly on top of the grain bill. There's maybe a centimetre there or something, but I think it's a good compromise as far as I'm concerned. It's very close to the top of the grain bill. And the numbers worked out actually pretty well, given I was at 8.5 kilograms when I said that 8.1 would be the maximum you could use with the long one. That was the long one in there. And as you can see, if I remove that, actually it came up pretty close. That's the long one with a collar on the top. If you'd had an extra half a kilogram of grain removed from there, there's a good chance, by sort of backing that fitting off, you could probably get that on top of the fitting, on top of here. So yeah, I think the calculations are pretty close. I might round them up a little bit as a sort of piece of guidance, just to give yourself a little bit more room, as in you get more grain per centimetre than the number I previously gave you. So probably round it up to about, I think it was about 0.375, so probably round it up to 0.38, something like that. So, but I think I'll get away with it for now until the telescopic pipe becomes available. But yeah, it's a good guide. Just I guess be conservative with your numbers, and allow a little bit more space than you'd think. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. Cheers.